Yeah, so first of all, let's just start with definitely in. It's a team that we haven't spoken about a lot, Andy, but, because it's been so boring how good they've been. Definitely in Oregon.
Yes, the Oregon Ducks are definitely in. They crushed Washington. A lot of frustration. Remember how I said that Ohio State would take 3 years of frustration out on Michigan? They didn't do that. But Oregon definitely took a bunch of losses worth of frustration out on Washington.
Yeah, and also the only power team or the only team in college football to finish the season undefeated. And I think that Oregon deserves some flowers. They had a tough non-conference game against Boise State that came down to the wire. They had Ohio State at home. They had to travel all across the country now in the new Big Ten from the West Coast, and they made it from start to finish 12-0. The only team to do that. The official number one team in the country right now, playing Penn State and Indianapolis next weekend. The Ducks could have been a bigger focal point in our conversations during this year, but they were the only team that were devoid of drama.
Right.
They just kept winning. They were the best. There was no question about how they were doing and how, what they could do with that talent. And they keep proving it week in and week out. So it'll be interesting to see how Penn State goes. It's going to be a whole nother can of worms now with Ohio State.
Oh, wait. Remember my saucy take?
What is your
Oregon and Ohio State will only play once this season?
You were right.
We don't know yet.
We don't know yet.
But
yeah, we don't know
there's
yet.
a chance. There's a chance. And when Saturday started, there's no way I would have thought that. By the way, if you're wondering why not just going crazy, oh my God, Michigan beat Ohio State. We did an entire video on that earlier in the day. So you can see that on the On3 Sports channel. We are definitely going to talk about that, though, because there's a lot of other reverberations that happened after that game that tie back.
And both of us wrote about it at on3.com, and there was a 20-minute video of the instant freakout reaction.
And it was a freakout.
There's been about 8 hours since that game started. We're going to have another conversation about that. We both wrote about it, so our brains have kind of, caught up to what happened. So stick with us here. We're going to get to that. Next team on the list, Andy, of definitely is Penn State. They are a team that, funny enough, I have given a lot of crap to this year.
Yeah.
And they did lose the only game that they were an underdog in all year to Ohio State, but they have found a way to get to Indianapolis, which is a step in the right direction, and honestly are playing really well offensively. So
yeah, they were great. So they give up a touchdown on the first play from scrimmage against Maryland and just destroy them the rest of the game.
Yeah, it was either the first or the second. I don't want to, because you got
that information. It was very early.
It was very early in the game. And then just scored a bunch of points. And then James Franklin
had to defend the threes and the fours scoring points.
Yeah, also he said when the threes and the fours get into the game, they're going to play football. They earn the right to it. And I could not agree with that.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you're playing 100%. The game, just stop them, Loxley. Like, figure it out. Okay. But Penn State, Oregon, big
Nobody planted a flag in that game, right?
Yeah. And we do have to have a discussion later on in the show, too. This is going to be a 4-hour show. I wrote a column on Friday night after the Georgia game about the SEC being weak or not having
mid, I think was the kids say.
I'm not a kid. I don't say mid, but I think that the point of the column was that they are propping each other up on fake and mirage type results. And now the Big Ten is potentially going to send 4 teams, and we have to have a discussion.
Yeah, that Michigan team beating that Ohio State team.
Yeah,
that's when you get mad about Oklahoma beating Alabama.
No,
it's the same thing.
I don't think, here's the thing about me, man. I have a strong opinion, but if new information shows up or things happen, Andy, that I'm going to be real about it. So we have to have a discussion about the Big Ten and the SEC and how we feel about it. But those 2 teams are automatically in. The third Big Ten team that's automatically in is Indiana. Indiana is a 1-loss team. They got blown out by Ohio State in their only test against a good team.
Yeah, I think they're going to be punished in the seedings, but not in the not getting in.
Because if Ohio State falls to 9 or 10 in the seeding, I think that Indiana has to be behind them.
Correct.
Probably. So,
yes.
That, but they're in as an 11-1 team. With all these teams losing, you've got 3 automatic, no doubt about. Well, and then we'll get to Ohio State.
You said Tennessee, right?
No, we've only done Big Ten. So Oregon, Penn State, Indiana are the 3 definitely from the Big Ten.
Yes.
Now we have Ohio State in the probably area, so stay tuned for that. The next 2 teams that I have written down here are Tennessee is definitely in. They're a 2-loss, 10-2 team with a win over Alabama. They're done playing football until the playoff, but they will be in the field.
Yeah.
And then the other one that we have is Notre Dame. They finished the season 11-1. They had a few pick sixes and a blowout.
What became a blowout? It wasn't really a blowout most of the game.
Over USC. They've won, I believe, 9 straight or 10 straight.
10 straight
since losing to NIU, which in a game that felt like it was yesterday, Andy. The season's flown by.
Yeah.
10 straight. They're going to be in cash.
By the way, we were watching this Texas team beat the Michigan team that beat Ohio State on the day we went to the B-Dubs and watched.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was It's been a fast, long year. So, and I think we have to put Texas probably into the definitely bracket now.
Texas is in the definitely bracket. They were playing in the SEC championship game against Georgia. They could lose it, but that would be loss number 2. It would actually be loss number 2 to the same team. They beat everybody else. I think they're in the definitely pile.
Okay, so we have 6 definitely piles. So that's 6 spots of the 12 spoken for. We probably have to, now that UNLV won by 1 million over Nevada on Saturday.
I don't think it's as cut and dried as you do about the Mountain West champ.
Well, why don't we type in G5 or G5 rep?
Okay, that's fine. There definitely will be one of those.
7 in there. So now we get into the probably.
Yeah.
Which is the interesting can of worms that you have with Ohio State. So Ohio State lost an embarrassing game to Michigan. We will break that down later in the show. But they are a 10-2 team who have beaten 2 playoff teams and have 1 point loss to the number 1 team in the country. With the way that the back end of this is looking like, I think that's a pretty solid resume to get in.
I think they're going to get in. The win against Indiana, and especially the fashion in which they beat Indiana, is going to carry them.
And I think you could probably even make a case for definitely here. But they're not playing, and there are teams that are still playing. So I felt uncomfortable saying
what we're saying. Yeah, I guess you're right. If Texas had lost tonight, we probably would have had them in the probably pile also. Yes. Even though they
probably is they're probably getting in, but we're not going to say definitely.
So we're at 8 teams now. There's 4 spots
8.
left.
Then Georgia is in the probably pile.
Yes.
They're a 2-loss team.
Oh, another one we could put in the definitely pile. We just don't know which one. The ACC champ, which could be Clemson or SMU. SMU is the one we thought was going to be in the championship game, but Miami loses a thriller at Syracuse, kicks a field goal to cut the lead to 4, and doesn't get back, doesn't score again. Game over.
I just got the text from River that says, "Hold the mic closer, Andy." You just pushed my hand up like a
that's what I did.
You're feeding a baby. Okay. Yes, ACC champion is in. So that brings us to probably Georgia. Okay. So Georgia is a 2-loss team at the moment. They played the toughest schedule by every schedule metric.
They've also beaten the team that can beat them in the SEC championship game.
They've already beaten the team that could beat them in the SEC championship game. I feel like even if they get a 3rd loss, they won't be penalized for being in the SEC championship game, and they'll probably get in at 9-3. Yeah.
I think that feels about right.
I don't know that, because you're not gonna put Alabama,
right? Who are you kicking out
over them? So,
well, this is where Ole Miss did beat them very badly, but they didn't go to the SEC championship game. And this is the one where you would have Greg Sankey and or Tony Petitti going berserk if any of their teams were left out that made the championship game.
Yeah, so I do think that Georgia's probably safely in. So now here's where you start getting into the weirdness, because I only have 2 probably.
Oh, and Richard in the chat asked the question. This is what we're coming to, actually. Still leading out South Carolina over a 2-loss SMU or Clemson. Listen, the only way Clemson's getting in is winning the ACC championship. Yeah, they're not getting in as an at-large.
Clemson is a maybe on my list, but we also have ACC champ in there. So you have SMU and Clemson both in maybe.
Right.
Because I don't think that we can definitively say that the loser of the ACC championship is in. Right?
SMU has a chance of making it in. Clemson does not have a chance if they lose. They have to win it.
But both are maybe because they're maybe.
Clemson's not going to be an at-large over South Carolina or over Georgia, which beat them head-to-head.
Which then brings us to the next interesting one, which is Miami. Miami lost on Saturday to Syracuse. That wonderful defense showed up again. They had a 21-0 lead and blew it. Mario Cristobal kicked a field goal on 4th and goal from the 10 late in the game, down 7, which I thought was a very bizarre decision to knowingly and willingly give the ball back to the team that you couldn't stop for 3 quarters, and they ended up losing. So, but Miami now is a 10-2 team. No real quality wins unless, Ward Manuel says.
You're not counting. You counting the Gators? You're not counting the Gators? They're 7-win team.
I guess we can count the
Gators. They planted the flag in Tallahassee and then started a fight.
I don't know what targeting is. I also don't know what a quality win is, because it's like, oh, they're playing. Yeah. It's like, that's not a quality win. They're playing well, but you don't get credit for that.
Yeah.
So anyway, Miami's a maybe. Then we have South Carolina, which we had definitively out earlier in the week, but they are a 9-3 team that now beat the Clemson team, who may win the ACC.
And I think if Clemson wins the ACC, that's very helpful for South Carolina. Now, South Carolina lost head-to-head to Ole Miss, which is also a 3-loss team. South Carolina lost head-to-head to LSU and Texas A&M, which are 4-loss teams. But the Ole Miss loss, I think about that. They can make an excuse. They can make an injury excuse. Because remember, Lenora Sellers got hurt the week before against LSU. He came back, but was banged up, and Rocket Sanders didn't play in that game.
Yeah.
So you can make a little injury excuse there, and I think you have a chance. I don't know how good of a chance. And there's also Alabama, which beat South Carolina.
Yes.
And is 9-3 as well.
That's the rest of the maybe list.
Yeah.
You have Alabama and Ole Miss, and the one we also forgot it definitely, which is the Big 12 champ, right?
Right. The Big 12 champ is getting in.
So then you have Arizona State. And
well, hold on. Okay. Before we go for it, let's make sure we agree on this. The Big 12 champ is getting in, even if Boise State is a 12-1 Mountain West champ, and Army is a 12-1. Actually, they'd be 11-1 because they haven't played Navy yet, but an 11-1 American champ.
Yes, I think that. I don't know if you do. I think that. I don't know if you do.
I think so. I'm not positive on that. I think so.
So you wouldn't put them in the definitely?
I don't know.
I mean, we could drop it to maybe.
I think, are you going to say Arizona State has a better resume than Army because it's Army that's the issue. Boise State's going to be in and is going to be ranked higher than that Big 12 champ if they're 12-1.
Oh, you're talking about whether or not 2 G5 teams are getting in? I'm comfortable putting Big 12 in.
Okay. All right.
Definitely. As they're going to put Army in over Arizona State if they're 10-2 with a Big 12 championship at the end of the year. They've got wins over Kansas State, and they've got.
All right.
I mean, they've won.
I'm asking you to defend it here.
I don't even know that there's something to defend. I think it's a definite.
Okay.
And that's how strongly I feel about that. Okay. So the rest of the maybe list, which is you basically just helped me do bubble watch, so I appreciate it, is Alabama, Ole Miss.
And we had South Carolina in there as well.
We had South Carolina in there as well. So that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Everybody else is eliminated. So I can go in here and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So that's 19 teams. We had 22 teams alive coming into the weekend. So, still a lot to sort out. And yeah.
Sorry, I'm just fixing Ari's mic.
Was my mic messed up?
No, you're just not talking into it.
If I held it any closer to my face, this would be like
make love to the mic, Ari. Make love to it. All right, so we have a pretty good idea now.
Okay.
So the bubble is basically the SEC 3-loss teams, right? That's the bubble.
It's deciphering, and that's the thing. Like now we just have to choose because there's no more games to be played. Like that's it. Like so.
Well, okay. The bubble also could be SMU if they lose to Clemson, because I think an 11-2 SMU might have a case.
Yeah. And I actually think that the cluster of SEC teams, like I have two ways of looking at it, Andy. It's the SEC. They're going to figure out the way to get teams in. On the other hand, if you have 3 indistinguishable SEC teams who have all beaten each other and have similar resumes, different teams, but similar when it's all said and done, if you can't pick between them, then you might just pick the ACC team.
Oh, no. Easier. You know what you're going to do? We're going to go to my old 4-team philosophy. Remember how we did the 4-team philosophy? The truth serum?
Okay.
The juice. Back in the 4-team playoff, when you had a debate between the 4th team and the 5th team to see who the 4th team would be, what I decided you should do, they never did this because nobody ever follows my advice, but you kidnap the coach of the number 1 seed, like bag over the head, grab him, throw him in a van. You inject him with truth serum. I have sodium pentothal. Is that what it is? Whatever it is, whatever makes you
don't want to see Andy's Google history, guys.
And you say this: who would you most like to play between these 2 teams? And the coach will go, I'd like to play Arkansas. I'm just giving you an example. And the other team is Notre Dame. And I'd be like, okay, then you're playing Notre Dame, because whoever you want to play is not who might beat you. So that's what we do. We're going to kidnap
but here's the thing. Like this is like
it has to be the coach of the team that would play that team, which I think it'd be the 11 seed. So
this goes back to our discussion.
So they play the 6th. So we kidnap the coach to the 6th seed, and we're like, who would you least like, or who'd you most like to play?
This goes back to our discussion from Friday night, Andy, which is in 2019 that was an easy game to play.
Yeah, it's a little harder now.
It's not an easy game to play right now. It's like, would you rather play Ole Miss, South Carolina, or Alabama? I don't know. Like, if the debate was between Alabama,
that's like a Styles make fight situation. Yeah.
Back in 2019, if the debate was between Alabama and the Big 12 champion, I'd be like, I would rather not play Alabama. Like, it was easy.
Right.
Like now, so this, like, and I know there's no precedent in college football playoff. Like, they don't use past college football playoff committee decisions to inform or guide current ones. This isn't the court of law. There are new people.
Yeah.
Things change. They make their own decisions. But you know what this reminds me of? And I remember it like it was yesterday, but like I was covering Ohio State in 14 in the inaugural 14 playoff field. And at the end of the year,
that was such an okie doke, that last one.
Yeah, well, at the end of the year, you had TCU and Baylor, and you had Ohio State.
Let's set up for the folks who don't remember. So
if you don't remember, I'm sorry.
Baylor beat TCU in the head-to-head game. This was back when the Big 12 played a true round robin. It was a great schedule. Everybody played everybody. Baylor beat TCU, but Baylor lost right before the first committee ranking. So they put Baylor behind TCU. And they did that for all of the committee rankings until the last one, when somebody bright, I'm sure, stood up and was like, Baylor beat TCU, right? We can't possibly have them behind TCU. And so TCU was number 3 going into that week. TCU wound up number 5 or number 6. Baylor wound up ahead of TCU wound up number 6. Baylor wound up ahead of TCU at number 5. Ohio State wound up number 4 because Ohio State would have kicked the crap out of Baylor or TCU, and everybody knew it.
Well, this was also during Ohio State's starting quarterback got injured in the Michigan game, and then Cardale Jones, the third-string quarterback, came in,
beat Wisconsin by a billion.
59-0.
Yeah.
And that, to me, was the most – I covered that game. I was there. It was the most thorough domination of good team playing good team I've ever seen.
So they might do this again is what we're saying.
But this reminds me of if you can't – like, because, like, if Ohio State didn't exist in 14 and they would have lost to Wisconsin and they had to choose between Baylor and TCU, it's an impossible decision. And I guess maybe you could just say, well, one beat the other. Like, this is the same thing, except there are 3 teams who all basically beat each other and have very different but the same resume. So, like, I'm wondering if an ACC team like Miami or
SMU
ACC championship game, that's a cleaner decision.
It's not going to be Clemson. Clemson's not a cleaner decision, though.
Yeah.
Because Clemson lost to Georgia and lost to South Carolina, which, by the way, but that Clemson-South Carolina game was a banger.
But then you have Miami sitting there.
You do. What is Miami's best win?
I don't think they have one.
It's Louisville.
Well, they played Florida.
It's Louisville or Florida. It's one of those two.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So they don't have one.
So that's where we're at.
When I say quality win, I just want everybody to be clear, and I want, I'm sure you're with me on this. My quality wins are teams currently ranked in the top 25 of the CFP poll. That's how and the thing that's annoying to me is that Ward Manuel in interviews says quality win about teams that have lost 6 times.
Well,
it's an impressive win, and it's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
just stick to the protocol. So we know. Like,
Ward Manuel almost walked himself into saying the Citadel was a good win for Clemson last week. He was struggling.
I don't even know what the hell's going on.
Yeah,
just like, because there's a difference between impressive win and quality win. You could be impressed by the way somebody looks. I was impressed by Indiana's Purdue win today when they won by 50. It's not a quality win. Like, there's a distinction.
I think they won by more than 50.
So Miami has impressive wins.
Yeah.
They have 0 quality wins.
Yeah. That is where we're at. Going. Now, we didn't totally get through that because we don't know who won the BYU Houston game yet. And the result of the BYU Houston game will determine the other team in the Big 12 championship. So Iowa State has done its part by winning Farmageddon. Mm-hmm. If BYU wins, it is Iowa State, Arizona State in the Big 12 championship game. If Houston wins, Colorado will play Arizona State. That game is going on right now.
Yeah, but none of those teams we have slotted Big 12 champion in definitely, but I don't think that the loser of those games will be in. So you have just one team. You have to decide who, like, by the time we get back to Waco where we're staying tonight, we'll know who won the BYU Colorado game. And that'll help.
BYU Houston.
Yeah, BYU Houston, and we'll know whether it's Colorado, Arizona State, or Iowa State.
Yeah.
but only one Big 12 team we can agree is going to the playoff.
Correct.
So
one
if
bid
Arizona
lead.
State loses, as great as their story has been, they're out.
They're out.
So yeah, so actually, like, I think we cleared that up pretty good.
I think so.
I think that like there's no teams that we didn't mention that are still maybe alive, right?
I don't think so because I mentioned Army here.
Yeah,
so
you didn't mention Army, and there's nobody in the G5. Army still has to play Tulane, and that's going to be a difficult game. But
Alec is mad because I said Ohio State would have crushed Baylor or TCU. They absolutely would have crushed Baylor or TCU in 2014.
I mean, we have the benefit of hindsight in that scenario.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you watch the Ohio State Alabama or the Ohio State Oregon game?
They won the national title, and they turned the ball over 5 times in the national title game and still won by 30. Like,
yeah.